co-authored last November 29. And if not for media making a lot of noise, June Lusada might have gone the way of Bobby Dasel. The Filipinos have an irrepressible craving for information and the urge to express their opinions. It is for that reason that we are supposedly the texting capital of the world. When Marcos reserved for his cronies the monopoly of publishing and broadcasting, the people turned to the alternative media and patronized the Radio Veritas as sources of believable information. Today, with the internet and the mobile phones, it is impossible to block the flow of information. Even China, with its superb surveillance apparatus, could not do it. Contrary to the doctrine of Raul Gonzalez, what the Philippine media need is not more restraint but more freedom. While free from government censorship, the working journalists are subject to the control of media lords and the big advertisers. The latter have the power to kill a piece of news and to ban certain personalities. Even as a socialist, I oppose state control of the media industry, lest they turn into mouthpieces of the government. I hate to see the Inquirer and Tribune replaced with something like Pravda and Rinmin Ribao. What I would like to see is to detach media from the market. The state should subsidize media as it is subsidizing the public schools, so that media will not be operated purely for profit and fueled by advertising revenues. Media should be viewed as an integral part of the educational system. In fact, they have actually edged out the schools as the main vehicle for dissemination of knowledge and the shaping of public opinion. It is regrettable that commercial television reserves prime time for shows that idiotize and miseducate because they are the most profitable. They nurture greed, superstition, and adulation of anything American. Instead of complementing the schools, they cancel out what we teach at school. So I advise the do-gooders who threaten to unleash a moral revolution to start with media reform, because the impact of media on people's consciousness and their sense of values is more profound and more enduring. And notice there are now excellent educational programs on television. And I'm proud that most of these are produced or hosted by our alumni and former faculty members. Unfortunately, these are broadcast through cable TV or broadcast outside prime time because they do not fetch as much advertising revenues as the trivial quiz show and the corny telenovelas. The state, I think, should regulate the content of broadcasting just as it regulates the curricula of private schools. This regulatory power should not be entrusted to a bureaucracy like CHED, but vested in independent boards which include representatives of the professional journalists, academics, and consumer cooperatives. As an instrument of power, media ought to be democratized like the state entities. I do not mean having the managers elected. I mean making their facilities accessible to community groups that cannot afford their exorbitant fees or whose advocacies irritate the high and the mighty. While I oppose censorship by government, I also oppose censorship by the media lords and advertisers. The democratized media industry is a potential point for intervention of public intellectuals. Through the media, we can go beyond the classroom. If we are able to participate in the making of history rather than in analyzing events after they happen, we should share our knowledge and skills with the people through the mass media and the internet. The weekly columns of Randy David and the occasional articles of Walden Bellew are excellent illustrations of what I mean. Through the media networks, it is possible to turn the whole country into a classroom. A nationwide political education is important to establish real democracy. If people get to understand the meaning and implications of the options offered to them, only then will they be able to make rational choices. How could they participate in a debate on the parliamentary versus presidential system, for example, if they do not understand the concept of parliament, much less be aware of the experiences of other countries with parliamentary government? Besides, there are many kinds of parliaments and different ways of relating parliament to the other structures of government, like the civil service. If the options are clarified to the people, if the options are not clarified to the people, their tendency is to choose on the basis of sympathy or hostility to the sponsors. In other words, to reduce an issue of principle into an issue of personalities. There are many other issues that have to be explained minus the statistics and jargon that addle the minds, so that our people can take sensible positions. Issues like federalism, market liberalization, deregulation, privatization, contractualization, etc. If the critics are given ample chance to articulate their stand, the technocrats will be forced to speak in plain language. In these national dialogues, university-based academics can participate in the realization of genuine democracy. Last June, the Korean Democracy Foundation and the Song Kung Hue University in Seoul invited me to a conference on redemocratization in Asia. I was invited to write a paper on how we restore democracy. But contrary to what the host expected, my paper argued that what we restored was not democracy, but an oligarchy masquerading as democratic. Our pretension to being a democracy is based on the fact that we hold regular elections. But we know that elections do not necessarily signify democratic governance. In elections in our country serve as a mask for elite rule, where access to the mass media is lopsided. The people are not informed of the options beyond what is possible in the status quo, even without Garci to doctor the results. Elections are democratic for as long as money is the critical factor. Democracy cannot be real in a society where there is a yawning gap between the filthy rich and the extremely poor. In that situation, the rich can always buy the support of the poor, and the poor are compelled by economic necessity to sell. The present electoral system allows intra-elite competition, but the system is so designed that the strongest contenders are drawn from a narrow circle of politicians who will not disturb the system of elite rule. The trapos in government and in opposition belong to the same elite. They have no principal differences. They offer no alternative policies and programs. Thus, the voters are merely asked to choose who will govern them, not how they wish to be governed. In the colorful language of Lenin, the people are simply asked which faction of the ruling class may represent and repress them. We are familiar with how this works in our country. An aspirant for public office must mobilize an enormous sum to assemble a campaign machinery, to buy votes and certificates of canvass, to pay for advertising, and to hire goons to protect their votes. He must be ready to spend far beyond what he can earn in legitimate salaries. But if he can demonstrate that he is a winnable candidate, donations will start pouring in from the wedding lords and business establishments. This is how graft and corruption is built into this system. The successful candidate cannot recover his investment, must recover his investment and amass more for future elections. The big-time donors expect to be compensated with special favor, thus enhancing their influence in the making of public policies. These are the rules of the game, as we are told. Jun Losada expressed pity for the many good people in the public service who are driven to commit morally reprehensible acts because to survive in that environment, they must follow the rules of the system. Young idealists who take a job in the government out of a desire to serve the people get shocked when he is recruited to a bribe collection syndicate. If he refuses to join, the syndicate will collect documentary evidence against him, and in the end, he is the one who is made to appear as a crook. I also know a lot of good people in politics, some of them my former students, who are personally honest, but after entering politics in the existing system, they soon become trapos themselves. The future holds no promise because the virus of cynicism has already corrupted Rizal's fair hope of the fatherland. Instead of infusing the system with idealism, the idealism of youth, the sangguniang ng kabataan has become a nursery for junior trapos or trapolitos. But I do not equate democracy with dirty politics. In our country, democracy is an ideal to strive for, not an existent reality. Democracy will not grow out of this system, no matter how long we wait for it to mature. Anyone with the temerity to run